chairs in here. You can have a seat if you like. Maybe we have these out for ourselves. Yes. We're inside the Monastery of St. John now. Founded, as we said, in the year 1088 by the monk we can see depicted here. We mentioned his name, Christodoulos. To be able to build, Christodoulos though needed permission and he needed the land. So he had to go to the capital of the Byzantine Empire, Constantinople, to visit the emperor, Alexios I Komnenos, which is depicted here. Alexios agreed to help Christodoulos. He gave him 3 documents, which I'm holding, one of the documents here, with which Christodoulos not only became the owner of the island, he got freedom from taxation, which is always very handy, and a ship for the needs of the monastery. So he came here with lots of monks and workers and some soldiers and started building. But not everything that we see is 900 years old. The main church there is original to the 11th century, the old refectory, the dining room, and a big part of the fortification. The rest is from the 12th century and onwards. Whenever they had money, they added buildings. So large parts from the 17th century when Patmos was a maritime power. This is when the courtyard dates from the 17th century. But you'll notice the piece of marble here and the columns. They're older. They're from the 4th century AD, from a church which stood here, dedicated to St. John. And this basilica, this great basilica dedicated to St. John, had taken the place of a temple dedicated to the patron goddess of the island, the goddess of hunting and the moon. Do you remember her name?
Artemis.
That's it. Artemis had a temple here at the time that John was here. So if he took a look up here, what he would have seen was that temple. Very common where ancient temples used to be later on to build Christian churches. The wall paintings above are about 300 years old and down below just over 100 years old. And wall paintings weren't just made to decorate the walls, they were meant primarily to teach. These were times when books were very expensive and most people didn't know how to read anyway. So above we learn about St. John. Notice John in the center there on the boat with his pupil Prochoros next to him. They both have halos. See how John is in chains. The tradition is that the ship carrying John to the land of his exile, to Patmos, was caught in a violent storm. As you can see, one of the passengers fell overboard. The victim's father, in a state of frenzy, tried to throw himself into the sea to save his son, but the crew stopped him and asked the apostle for help. John prayed, the sea calmed, and a wave brought back on board the ship the boy alive. With this miracle, the crew was converted to Christianity. So according to tradition, John, coming to the island of Patmos, where they all believed in the 12 gods of Olympus, well, he was bringing with him the first Christians. And when John was brought onto the island, he was brought in front of the governor, who, after hearing the passenger's story, freed John of his chains. And they offered him lodging in their house, the family of the governor. So slowly through meeting John, people started converting to Christianity. But there was a group of men who were not impressed with John. And these were the priests from the temple of Apollo. You'll see them over here. They have gone to visit a famous sorcerer in a cave where he lived in. So the cave of good and the cave of evil, you could say. So the sorcerer's name was Kinops, which means face of a dog. And he agreed to help stop John's influence. He went down to the harbour where he found St. John preaching. Notice John there with his pupil next to him. The sorcerer is the one dressed in brown. What the sorcerer could do, and this is him challenging John, the battle of powers, was dive into the sea and bring back from the dead relatives of the Patmians. Which weren't really relatives though, but demons representing them. John didn't agree to participate in this little show-off, so Kenops' followers attacked John, beat him, and left him presumably dead. But miraculously, St. John survived, and when Kenops found out they hadn't finished what he had started off doing, he once again went down to the harbour. Notice again the sorcerer diving into the sea. But this time John prayed to Jesus and asked him to keep Kenops down in the water and never let him come up again. And that's what we believe happened. The sorcerer was never to be seen again. We believe he was turned to rock. And later, in your free time, you could go for a walk along the beach and you'll be able to see a big black and yellow buoy marking where the petrified sorcerer still lies today. And in fact, there are documents from the 1940s where they wanted to put dynamite to destroy the rocks, it's in the way of shipping. And in the beginning they couldn't find a volunteer. Eventually someone said, yeah, it's fine, I'll do it. But he had a heart attack before putting the dynamite. So after that they were like, yeah, it's all right, we'll just leave it, put a bigger board, it's fine. Now where do we get these stories from? They do go down through oral tradition, but they were also written in a book called The Acts of John according to Prochorus. And this is one of the so-called apocrypha, or pseudepigraphal texts. These are texts that we take stories from, but we don't take doctrine from them. They're not part of the New Testament.
Right.
And you can find it as an e-book today on Amazon. Now let's enter the church. Unfortunately, no photos inside. And again, we'd like to take your hats off. We've got more things to say inside. How about this?